Hey, it's Sam, and I'm here with the last video in this axis of astrology system where I'm going to talk about practice and application, and also tapping into a community and how to actually learn at a high level. Now, if it's still possible for you to register for the course, you want to do that because we're getting close to a sort of point where we stop registrations and then we have to sort of regroup and look and see what we have. So you want to go ahead and do that. Today I'm going to be talking about some really important stuff. It says behind me, hierarchy of learning, and this shows a systematic way that we actually learn. It's been studied through like neuroscience and other systems, which is a lot of what I pay attention to. In addition to studying astrology, I study how to actually teach and how we actually learn, because one of the things I'll tell you is that everyone can learn astrology. You can learn it when it's taught properly and it's systematized and broken down in the proper way. Anyone can learn it, and it's because we wind up siphoning through this hierarchy of learning. And again, I've spent a lot of time doing that in my life, and I'm going to talk about this today. But, again, first I just want to make sure that you understand that it's not magical thinking. Astrology is not something just reserved for the gifted few. It's a system that you can learn. It's a science. And, one of the things that I hear so much is that people sort of give up on the notion that they could actually learn, even though they want to, because they think it's too difficult. And they think it's too difficult because the way they see it explained most of the time. Or you'll watch a little piece of a video here and you'll get this little piece of data, which I'm going to explain, or information and data. And it's like, oh, okay, I learned something. But you actually didn't really learn it. You just gathered some data. And you can tell if you've really learned it and if it's knowledge, because is it tapped into a system? Is it mixed with experience? Can you explain it yourself? That's when you actually learn something. That's when it becomes knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, when it actually becomes integrated. So again, it's very easy, because that's your experience with astrology, is this information data gathering masquerading as some knowledge. And sometimes you think that you have learned something, and then again I would say explain it or interpret it, and you don't really know how to do it very well. Instead, this is all the confusion that I hear from students on and over and over and over again. They're like, I thought it was this, it's that, I have this, and it's supposed to be good but it's bad. Or again, I said in an earlier video, nothing is actually confusing. Nothing contradicts anything else. There is nothing confusing. It's confusing when you don't really know it. What's mainly confusing is you have this illusion of knowledge. You have this illusion that information and data is actually knowledge and wisdom. And then you're confused about it. You're saying, well, I already know this, quote, so how come it's not doing what it should do? Well, because you don't know it. It's not knowledge yet. It's data. And so this illusion of information is a big problem in this modern world of this kind of snacking culture, like you hear me talk about, where we just gather little blips and blaps and pieces of data and we think it's knowledge because you can identify something. Okay, well, this planet is exalted, which is a good thing, then how come it did a bad thing? Because again, you mistake the idea that you can identify something, which is simple. Any animal can identify something. They do it all the time. Your dog can identify you rather than somebody else. Your dog can identify the toy as being a toy rather than a scary monster. Identifying something is the most simple thing that any brain can do. Children do it immediately. Oh, that's a banana. That's the dog. It's the first thing your brain does. Identifying things is no big deal. That's just data. It has nothing to do with understanding, wisdom, knowledge. Again, and people think that because they're gathering data that they're getting knowledge, and they're not. So once that data gets organized into a system, then it becomes wisdom. So data is the first level of what your brain does. And it's just, most data is irrelevant. Like, for instance, Data can be anything like the color of something or identifying this is the letter A. It's just that's just data. It has nothing to do with anything. And most data is irrelevant. Your brain just categorizes things all the time. Like, oh, that's this. And most data just kind of flies through our mind and we don't pay any attention to it. It's largely irrelevant. It's a function of the mind and the brain to mainly be alerted to danger and things like that. Or to just categorize things. Like, that's the dog, that's a person, that's a planet, that's an astrology chart, it's exalted, it's debilitated. That's still data. Now, it starts to become more organized information. Information is organized data. So when we take something like planet and sign, which are two pieces of data, and we organize them a little bit, it becomes information. So I should say something like an exalted planet, something that you've identified in a chart, is information. Okay, the data would be, that's a planet, that's a sign, that's this, that's all just disconnected pieces of data. You start to organize the data a little bit and it becomes information. Again, information is one of the first things that we do. Instead of saying that's a dog, we say that's my dog. I like the dog. It licks my face. The dog does this. Dogs do this. That's information. And we start to see, okay, all dogs do this. All dogs have a tongue. All dogs have to eat. You have to be careful with dogs or they might bite you. This is information, right? It's organized data. Then we have knowledge. Knowledge is organized information. Knowledge starts to become organized information. So we take different pieces of information and we organize it and match it up with other pieces of information. That's what can become knowledge. Some of you who've been studying more than just identifying disconnected things, like if you've actually studied more, then you probably have some knowledge about it where you understand, okay, well, yes, I understand why that exalted planet isn't always going to do something good, because you have to look at other things, like there might be an aspect or there might be, the house is also important. So then that information starts to become knowledge and starts to become organized mainly around other people, other pieces of information. So as different pieces of information start to link up, they can become knowledge. They can become knowledge. You also have to be careful, and it hasn't become understanding yet, because again, this is where a lot of the illusion hangs out. The illusion of information being knowledge is a lot of what beginning astrology students do. They do understand that there's more involved, they do understand that, and then they think, okay, so I know that. And again, it becomes understanding when it becomes mixed with experience. So it's when knowledge, which is these things linking up together, these concepts, knowledge is when information starts to become conceptual as well. So instead of just identifying something like exalted planet, it becomes more of a conceptual thing. Oh yeah, well that's not the only thing, and you start to get the concept. That's when you start getting knowledge. But then understanding comes when you mix that knowledge and that concept, those concepts, with your experience. That's when it starts to become understanding. Okay, you start to understand the information or understand the knowledge, whatever. Again, this is a lot where my students hang out in the certification course. Once they start learning, we start taking their information. For some of them, they also need to learn the data. They need to learn what all the stuff is. Like in the certification course, we have to gather all of the data and we link it up as information. We organize the data. Then we have to organize that information into things like, into concepts, into the concept of planet signs and houses, what they are, how they work together. We start to organize that information and it starts to become knowledge, right? Like you actually know that thing. Okay, I know and I understand. Right. The planets rule the signs, so the signs aren't just another thing. They're the expressions of the planets, masculine and feminine, and okay, they become houses. Once we have an ascendant, once we have a rising sign, then Libra becomes also a house. So if it's Leo, then Libra, that sign, which is ruled by Venus, becomes the third house. If it's Capricorn, then Libra, that sign ruled by Venus, becomes the 10th house. Now we have a concept, we have a structure, and it's more of a conceptual thing. That's when it becomes knowledge. You start to know this, right? But it doesn't become understanding until you start to use it. And that knowledge becomes mixed with your experience. This is where I have to wind up getting students. I say, you need to stop just, now that you understand that you're gathering this information and it's become knowledge, it's become organized, now you need to start to use it so it can become understanding. So you understand the knowledge and the data and the information. You're never going to understand it on your terms until you start to experience it. This is why you'll see many times students will study, they'll put the time, and they'll actually get a lot of knowledge. And you hear they're quite knowledgeable, but they don't really understand it very well. Again, you can take this all the way back to the first videos where I'm talking about one of the main things is we don't even understand what astrology is. Most people don't even know what it is, right? So again, experiencing the knowledge by looking at charts yourself and bringing the knowledge out by saying the words and asking people what's happening and getting out of the myopic, self-absorbed world is what makes it understanding, right? And then wisdom then goes to the next level when we have understanding so we've taken action. Let's say, let's use the example of we've done some readings. First we start doing some readings with our friends and family and people we know, and then maybe we start to do other readings, and that knowledge becomes understanding because of our practice. But then it becomes true wisdom once we bring this understanding into a diverse group of experiences. Someone who has wisdom they've now applied this understanding and it's been tested in a range of experiences. So it's not just, for instance, looking at natal charts or doing this thing where you're doing readings, for example, where you're reading charts and doing that. Now you've been doing research and you look at, charts of events, like event charts. You start to teach. That's a whole other experience other than doing a reading. Teaching is a different experience than doing reading. Or you start to then take that understanding and apply it to within other paradigms. Like, for instance, I've taken Vedic astrology and applied it to neuroscience, to quantum physics, to Western astrology, to yoga, to Ayurveda. Like, you start to match that understanding of this, let's say this system, like let's say astrology, with many other experiences, many other systems. Because you have to understand this. Any true wisdom tradition or anything that is a true system is going to be applicable with every other system. It's going to comply. It'll be compliant and amenable and agreeable to every other system. Like, it's very easy to find the connections between Vedic astrology especially and neuroscience or quantum physics or yoga or the Kabbalah or any kind of spiritual tradition that's authentic. And you can see if something is authentic or not because you'll see how well it matches up with the authentic wisdom that you have gathered through the diversity of experience in your tradition. Then you'll see how it matches up with other ones, right? So, for example, you can have understanding through doing readings and stuff like that, as I said, which is important. It's an important step between knowledge and understanding. Like, you'll understand how to use the system, for example. But it'll be hard for you to then take that understanding and apply it to quantum physics, or neuroscience, or something else, until you get a more diverse range of experiences within your discipline. So until you start applying astrology, let's say, to more than just reading charts, like, for instance, if you don't start, like, instead of just reading natal charts, until you start doing things like electional charts or research into other things or research into, Ayurveda or something, then you can't really expand it yet. And that's where the wisdom comes in, when you start then expanding the science itself and the application that you already have. And what happens is, as you start to expand it, you get more understanding. And as you get more understanding, you need to double back down on the system. And in order to double down on the system, you need to organize the information more. And in order to organize the information more, you need to gather more data. So you're gathering data from other systems. You're clarifying that information more. You're clarifying, and that information is becoming knowledge. And that knowledge of that other system is becoming understanding. And then that becomes wisdom. And all of the systems start to talk to each other. But again, in order to understand, in order to connect, let's say, astrology to neuroscience, you need to gather data about it. It can't just be disconnected data. It needs to be information, knowledge, understanding. And the deeper you've gone into your understanding, let's say, of astrology, then the more you'll recognize the depth and the deep information in the other systems as well. And that's when you can see something becomes wisdom, because then it becomes universal. So someone who has wisdom, like when you hear someone speak about something where they have an enormous amount of wisdom, they can speak about it in a whole range of, in fact, every situation becomes a forum for whatever their system is. Like I could talk about astrology in any format at this point. I do have wisdom about it because I've practiced it so much and I've connected it with other things. So it doesn't matter the situation. I can say, yeah, this is like an astrological principle of this, or any other science. I taught at a conference last year, the Science and Non-Duality Conference, which was just attended by quantum physicians and neuroscientists. That's who was there. And the presentation was on Vedic astrology and karma, Vedic astrology and the mind, Vedic astrology and our cognitive biases and inner conflicts, Vedic astrology and how karma is basically the Eastern version of quantum physics. What quantum physics shows, the quantum reality of collapsing the infinite wave into the particle of the moment, which is quantum speak. That's what we do with karma. That's what karma is. And making this case with neuroscientists and quantum physicians there, not astrologers, but people who know quantum physics, people who know neuroscience were there. So that was quite a challenge. And again, so this is when things start to move from understanding into wisdom. When it's not just your understanding of it because of what you've been able to do, because you've gathered the data and you had the right information and you linked that information up and it became knowledge. Then you started to apply it and you got a greater understanding of that knowledge through your experience. Then it becomes wisdom when you build on that. You have a diverse group of experiences within your discipline and beyond. So it's a very important point that also happens here, this whole kind of false choice between, well, how much of it is science and how much of it is intuition? Science and intuition. Are you just reading that as science, or are you also using your intuition? That all happens right here. And you have to understand something. Every scientist uses their intuition. Intuition is your heart. It's your identity. It's who you are. And nothing becomes understanding and then later wisdom until you interact with it. And then the science becomes personal. You can gather all this information and have this knowledge, quote knowledge, but it doesn't become authentic knowledge. You don't become confident in it. You don't know how to use it until you start to use your intuition and develop your intuition with it. Intuition is not against science. That's the point. The science and learning it correctly and getting this knowledge is a structure, is a framework for your intuition to flow. But your intuition is always happening. Intuition just means your heart and your experience interfacing with something. We think intuition is some kind of mysterious thing. It is mysterious, but it's not. It's impossible to do anything without intuition. It's really your experience of being alive and having something moving through you as a living being and your creative self engaged with it. So you can say it like this: the science is the same for everyone. The intuition is different for everyone. So everyone needs to learn the science, and that's what I teach. I teach the science, how the data needs to be information, how it needs to be organized into knowledge, and then I make sure to push people into practicing it, because then that's going to start to unlock your intuition, your deep genius, and that's your unique experience, your unique genius interacting with the knowledge, interacting with the science to create it on your terms so that you understand it. And no teacher can give you that. No teacher can do anything except take you to the point of knowledge, and good knowledge, where it's truly, authentically organized in the proper way. But then you have to take the ball and actually apply it and get experience with it. And at that time you start using your intuition and you start to develop your intuition. But it's within an organized framework of pure science. That's not just you winging it. And what intuition usually means is people, because it's been so misused, and it's been something that people use to shortcut science, especially when it comes to astrology and things like that. Oh, I don't bother with all that study so much. I just kind of feel my way through it. I'm just very intuitive, and you know, I just work with the archetypes, and I'm kind of intuitive about it all. It's not astrology. So again, it doesn't mean you can't help someone, and if someone does that, that's fine. But you'll hear a lot of, like, you know, healer, psychic. I'm a psychic healer. I don't really learn all the specifics. I just kind of know the archetypes and then use my intuition to do all this. I'm not saying they can't help people, but they're not doing astrology. They're not doing anything scientific. And the reason it's important is because that can be hit or miss a lot of the time. And a lot of it is emotional when people are doing that. They're not really honing their powers of discrimination, and they're not honing their intuition and giving their intuition a sensible scientific structure through which to flow. That's what it is when you learn one of the metaphysical arts, for sure, is you understand the building blocks so that your intuition has an authentic way to move. So it's moving towards something that's true, not moving towards something that even the psychic themselves aren't sure about. Because this is also what happens with people who do that. They're not sure about what they're saying. And this is also why you'll see those kinds of, quote, astrologers or psychics or mediums or whatever, they don't respect astrology very much. And this is what I mean. And not to denigrate Western astrology so much, but that kind of looseness is much more tolerated. You don't hear a lot of Vedic astrologers think that way, but still it's a good example to understand that you'll hear people, especially in the Western astrology tradition, say all the time, well, you're not the chart. And as soon as I hear something, as soon as the client says something that's not in the chart, I listen to the client because they're doing something that's not in the chart, and I trust the client more. And again, I'm just going to tell you flat out, that's not astrology. Because, again, people get readings when they're confused. And clients say things all the time that are not clear. And they want you to be able to see the truth. And if you don't trust your science well enough to know, then it's like going to a doctor and or let's say you go to the dentist and the dentist does an x-ray and sees you have a cavity, and you say, I don't feel anything. And the dentist goes, oh, all right, I guess I was wrong. Like, what are you talking about? You either know it or you don't. You either know your science or you don't. So I want you to understand the difference between intuition and knowledge, or is it science or is it intuition? They both work together, and one can shortcut the other, especially intuition. The way people use their intuition now is often a kind of entry point into laziness when they don't want to study, because this takes work. You need to work. You need to actually focus on this and use your brain. And it's very easy to start to do it, use your brain in the stuff that's easier or kind of fun, personality driven and emotional driven and all this, and then kind of, I just use my intuition for all the rest. That's great. But then when it comes down to a point where it needs to get serious, you're not going to trust your intuition if you don't have good science behind it. And you're not going to know how to research it to confirm it either. And I see this all the time. I got to get some students out of this too. Because what happens is once you get into this and the knowledge is really good, then once you start using your intuition, by experiencing it and by doing readings, then you'll see your intuition is dead on. And it's what some people call channeling, and like, I was just channeling this. What happens is once you start doing it and using it, when the knowledge is good, you get great answers, and you start connecting things in a way that you would have never thought. The channel, we're all channels. All of us have a channel. Everyone has a potential to be channeling. That's why I said at the beginning of this video, we all have the potential to be channeling. We're like, oh, I was just channeling it. Everybody has a potential to be channeling because you are a channel. You are the embodiment of divine wisdom. You don't think it is because you don't know yourself on that level. Again, studying astrology, first of all, opens up that channel. It purifies that channel. But you can't purify the channel by not learning something and learning how the channel is made. So again, when you learn astrology, you're learning who you are as a channel. That's what it is. You're learning all of that stuff first about yourself, and then how the universe and cosmos shows all of that. So then by the time you've organized all of this, what it is, it's a discipline of clearing and uncluttering your channel. That's what astrology study is. So then by the time you start applying it, the channel is open. And again, you can understand it as the marriage of science and intuition. Then your intuition is flowing through wisdom. Your intuition is flowing in a very clear and pure way. This is why when you hear people who have a lot of wisdom and then they've connected that experience or that knowledge and that understanding to a diversity of experiences, you hear when they talk, the channel is always open. The channel is open because they've gone through that experience and they've purified the channel. This is why you really only need to learn one discipline very deeply, and it opens up the channel for all disciplines. And astrology, I think, is the best because it's actually the science of all of those pure energies in you and in everything, and it's all pervasive through our karma and everything else. So I wanted to explain to you this hierarchy of learning, and now I'm going to get into explaining the necessity and the need to actually apply it, and to also get in an organized group so that you can better hone your practice and have a support system around you to get the most out of your time. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about practice and application in your astrology studies, and the importance of practice and application to take that knowledge and that organized information and that conceptual approach to the information and actually turn it into understanding, which is the knowledge plus the experience. And again, that experience comes from practicing and applying the knowledge. So first, that leads to being an astrologer or a full-time teacher once you start practicing and applying. It makes astrology your practice, like I said at the beginning, where your intuition is connected to the knowledge. And that makes the astrology practice real for you, not just theoretical. So again, it's very easy to miss these important steps and not get that this is why you're stuck. Maybe you've been gathering information for a long time and it's even organized information, which is knowledge, but it's not going anywhere. It's just kind of stuck. Well, that's because you're not practicing it. And so that's why it hasn't become understanding. So again, what happens is after this practice leads to being a teacher and a full-time astrologer, what happens is it connects the data and all that information to your speech, which means the words you say. The words you say shows your level of comprehension. And as I said, it opens up that channel so that your intuition is not just kind of random and even confusing to you, but it's connected to your words, and you understand that what you're saying is true, and it will be. And again, it gets you ready to practice full time once you start experimenting. And I'm giving this more weight. This outline is mainly how I encourage people in my certification course. So that's what this is geared toward. So the practice and application is how I lead students into this. So one of the ways that I do it is to encourage people to start having astrology conversations immediately. Once you start learning with me in the certification course, I want you to start being a teacher and an astrologer as fast as possible, because you're going to have a great foundation. But I know that in order for you to really understand it and comprehend it, you need to start having astrology conversations immediately at whatever level you're at, and then get ready to be practicing full time, because it will happen. You'll start to have people want you to read their chart. It happens every time with every student who actually applies it. They can't believe how glorious the feedback is, because you're going to be trained really, really well. So again, that makes astrology your practice. So it's not just listening to me, not just trying to repeat what I say. It's opening your channel through these conversations that you have, and it makes it your practice. So that gives you confidence in counseling, so that you understand how to hold space for people as you have these conversations, and it helps you find your voice, not just my voice. And that really will help you connect the techniques in your own way, which again means I give you all the tools to really understand what the information is and how to organize it. But you'll start to see it yourself, and you'll start to connect it in your own way. And that has to happen. And then again, that makes the astrology practice real for you, not just theoretical. And your value goes up, your fees go up. So again, the better you get, the more you have confidence to charge what you're worth. And again, this is why people stay stuck in their own life and things don't change, because they don't start having the experiences, like in this case, having the astrology conversations, starting to find your voice. So your personal value never changes, which means you don't get the feedback that's necessary for you to understand your value. The only way for you to know how valuable you are is to start doing it and then listen to the feedback that comes from other people. Then your values go up, your value goes up and your fees go up. Then you build on those experiences. And again, you start to have enormous confidence and know that you're really helping people based on the feedback from others. So the confidence from the feedback of others fuels that whole matrix. So this is why it's just incredibly important that you start having experiences yourself and really connecting the astrology with your own systems, or your own, not your own system. So that means that it's utterly important for you to start to connect that knowledge and that organized information with your own experiences, so that it becomes understanding. Now, in the program, in the certification program, again, we have the membership site and the whole portal around which people also interact. And this is there to help you stay on focus and stay on track as you're learning. And with the certification course in general, the course has been vetted over time, which means we've now taught that course and improved it for 5+ years, close to 200 graduates, amazing testimonials from students. And there are full in-person seminars each year as well, where people come and study in person. So what I mean to say is that this course is not on trial. It's not like, although you do have a trial period to see if it works for you, like if you can study, which I've only had like 1 or 2 people over that time actually say, you know what, I can't do it. Usually I wind up letting people go because they don't actually want to work, to be honest with you. But the course material itself is proven, and you can see all the testimonials that show that. This is why we've had so many graduates and such glowing recommendations. And by the way, close to half the people, or about half the people who take the level 1, then also take the level 2 course. So again, that will tell you something important about how good the course is. And the courses are delivered conveniently. So it's actually just once a week you get a video course with an audio manual, or with audio and manual, and you just watch the video and you do the work that week. Also, the homework is graded. So it's weekly homework is graded. You get professional guidance from the staff that allows you to stay on track. It's a distraction-free zone. So at the forum in the course, it's not like a Facebook group or a YouTube group or whatever. It's a professional learning environment. You just need to allocate 2 to 3 hours per week in order to learn. You don't need to spend like 10 hours a week or something. You never have to leave your home. It's very easy. And again, sometimes people think, well, but it's hard for me to, I'll be all by myself and you know, I learn better in a group and all like that. You'll get very used to this ritual where you'll just find an easy way each week to, find your space and, get a nice cup of tea and sit down and watch the video. I mean, you're watching videos anyway. You're watching this video. You just focus that, 2 to 3 hours per week on digesting the class, doing the homework if you want. It's very easy and very convenient for everyone. And again, there's also many opportunities for students. You can be a journalist for the school. I have many of my students also write articles and we post them. And you can be a tutor, which is now been implemented. I have level 3 tutors that work with other students. Again, these are great opportunities for you. You can work at the school and grade homework. So the people that will be grading your homework are former students who have also graduated and then wanted to go to work for the school. So many opportunities for students as well throughout the course. And again, the courses are also delivered in the correct order. Systematized like all great teachings. As we said at the very beginning, the way we learn things is they're prioritized. There's a priority and a sequence to which things are unfolded that first start with principles. You need to know all the principles. First, you need to know the origin and the principles. Then you have to organize them properly. Then you unfold them with the right calculations and all that. So everything is unfolded at the right time with this building block approach, as I said, based on principles. One week builds upon another. And you're not overwhelmed by information like when you go to a conference. I've had people say, would you just do a conference where you just teach it all in one weekend? I would really like that. Well, first of all, you got to get on a plane and fly somewhere or do something. Second of all, you're not going to retain any of it. So this way, it's very easy. You go to the class each week and you get material just like a college level course. It's like what happens in college. You get a powerful training each week. You have homework. You have a community there to support you. It's very easy and affordable and convenient as well. And again, it's also what's called a satsang, or a higher vibration community. This is well known in Eastern traditions that it's called the company of the wise. And we even know now in Western behavioral models that everyone is an aggregate. Your behavior and your lifestyle is an aggregate of like the 5 most important people to you in your life. You're a sort of composite of them in health, in income, in lifestyle, in self-confidence. So when you gather in this high vibration community, it really enhances your life. So you can help others and they'll help you. A lot of sharing, a lot of bonds are made through the course, and it's a sacred space through which you can grow. Again, it's very important to be in a supportive group. This is not like a Facebook group or YouTube group. It's absolutely tightly controlled. There's no spamming, no arguing, no trashing. People come to get their questions answered and to bond around this uplifting group experience. A lot of camaraderie, and it's a real spiritual blessing to be able to gather and come together in this environment. Just look at the testimonials of the people that have gone through the course, as I said, and you get all your questions answered. We're there the whole time, usually within one day, and that's at the latest. So you get to work through your case studies in real time as you start to learn more. If you have a question, ask. Bring the chart, ask why this happened, and you'll see about yourself and other people that you're looking at. And again, it's the place for astrology focus. That's what the course is. Place for astrology focus. You get even 2 private check-in calls with me directly. And again, it might not sound like much, 2 15-minute calls where just you and I talk, focus time. Usually the calls go later, but they're scheduled for 15 minutes. They usually go 20 minutes to half an hour because I want to talk to you personally as well. And it's remarkable how just talking with me directly as well can help to untangle some difficulties that you're in at a given time. And unlimited questions in the forum and in the group dynamic. And I didn't put here, but there's also monthly conference calls where you get on a group call with everybody. So there's a group call with everybody. There are 2 personal calls with me. There's unlimited questions in the forum. So you have more support than you need, really. Everyone is there to help you. And there's also tutors and homework graders there to all help you. One of the great things also about being in a group environment like that is you get an accurate comparison of your skills relative to others at your level. So it's easier to learn in a group environment rather than comparing yourself with me, like as a teacher. See, there's often this great idea that, oh, it would be wonderful to just have personal coaching, like, can you coach me personally, or can you be my personal, one-on-one? I'll tell you the truth, there is no benefit. If you were to be my one-on-one student, you would come and sit in front of me, and I would tell you exactly what I tell you in the first class of the course. I would sit there and say that to you, and then have you go home and do the homework and come back the next week, and I would tell you that same thing that's in the second class. But the difference is that if you're always comparing yourself just to me, then you're not going to have an accurate evaluation. When you're in a group environment, you get to evaluate yourself in comparison to other students and see that sometimes they know more than you, sometimes you know more than them, and you see how intelligent the people are, and by contrast and by comparison, you realize how intelligent you are as well. So these are some of the reasons to really consider studying and taking your studies to the next level. So as I said at the beginning, if there's still room to register, you want to go ahead and do that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I love talking about the way we learn and the way to take data and organize it into information, and then organize that information into knowledge and get more conceptual, and then take that knowledge and bring it into the realm of experience so that there's great understanding about what we've organized and learned, and then take that understanding and really connect it with a diverse range of experiences and other sciences to have it become wisdom. So I look forward to participating in that journey with you if it works. So I'm sure I'll have 80 to 100 registered for the course this year, and hopefully you can be one of them, and I'll talk to you soon.